welcome everybody to the Art and Science of a Heschel Education. We're so happy to have you here. I can't tell you how happy I am that it is a beautiful evening. I'm sitting here in front of the main entrance here at Heschel, and we thought we'd do something a little bit different in terms of having some of our program tonight outside to give you a chance to see the outside of the building. So before we get started, I wanted to note that we are recording tonight's event, which you were probably notified when you came in, because we want to make the footage available to a couple of people who couldn't come. However, when we share that footage, we are going to make it, just going to zoom in, so to speak, on the Heschel team. You will not be on the recording forever in perpetuity. So if you'd like to turn on your camera so we could see your faces, that would be fantastic. We are a very warm and welcoming community here, and we'd love to see you if we could. So there are a number of features that really make the Toronto Heschel School special, and we have a few speakers tonight that are going to bring those special elements to light. So first off, we have Greg Bayless, who will be talking about the overall framework that informs Heschel's unique approach to teaching and learning, or as Greg likes to say, the art and science of shaping a great school. Then we're going to have Yarden Borlis discussing science and Heschel's approach to outdoor education. And we will follow that up with Lisa Rendley explaining how visual art is used for our students to express complex and creative ideas that integrate their knowledge across multiple disciplines. After our three speakers, we will give you, the audience, a chance to ask any questions you may have. So I'm going to start off by introducing Greg Bayless. More Greg, as he is known around here, is our head of school, and he's director of the Lola Stein Institute. He started at Heschel as a teacher in 24 years ago, and he became head of the school in 2014. Greg holds a Master of Arts in the Philosophy of Education, as well as a PhD from U of T's Center for the Study of Religion. In 2019, he was awarded the prestigious Covenant Award, which honors exceptional Jewish educators who have made an impact on Jewish life through innovative educational practices and models. Greg is passionate about the power of integrated Jewish education to help children become creative, compassionate, and confident human beings. Greg.
Thanks, Bailey. So, hello, everybody. It's really, really awesome to be able to host you here at the Toronto Heschel School at an open house that is truly an open house. We are out here in one of our outdoor Heschel classrooms. We always try to be a little bit innovative here at Heschel, live a little on the edge. So we're out here filming in our big field in one of our outdoor classrooms, and we hope all the technology goes well. So I hope you guys can all hear me out there and are able to come into our Heschel classroom. We built these classrooms this year as a response to COVID to provide a space for our students outdoors so that we could have some of our learning outdoors, a chance for kids to take their masks off, breathe some fresh air, but also because we're very, very dedicated to outdoor learning here at Heschel. And frankly, we saw the challenge of COVID as an opportunity to expand our outdoor learning facilities. And we're really glad that we did. These outdoor classrooms are a keeper. We fully intend to be back next year in September, full in-person learning, but we are not doing away with our outdoor classrooms. We will continue to use them, and students will continue to learn in our outdoor classroom. The other reason I thought it might be fun and interesting to host our open house in the outdoor classroom is that I think the outdoor classroom is a great metaphor for the kind of work we do here at Heschel, for our vision, for our philosophy of education. Because like a well-built structure that also has a lot of air and open space, a well-designed educational program needs to have some core components. First and foremost, a well-grounded, well-rooted educational program has to have excellent foundations. And the Toronto Heschel School was founded 25 years ago with an incredibly cutting-edge, innovative vision for Jewish education. And we have held true to that vision of Jewish education for the last 25 years and just continue to grow from strength to strength. The school's vision is rooted in Jewish values. It's rooted in best practices in education. And its goal is to bring those together to form the best education. A really excellent educational program also requires architecture. It requires a well-designed, thoughtful, and innovative framework and scaffolding to provide the open space in which students can thrive and grow and learn and become the best people and the best students that they can be, the best learners that they can be. And that is what our goal and our intention is here at the Toronto Heschel School. People sometimes ask me, is the Toronto Heschel School a religious school? And to answer that question isn't so easy. One of the core foundational pillars of our school, and I'll talk about that first, is Jewish religious pluralism. So our school not only invites and welcomes, but celebrates the diversity of Jewish expression. We welcome people from all denominations with different understandings and visions for how to practice Judaism in a deep and meaningful way. At the same time, it's very important to us that our students graduate literate in Jewish text, literate in Jewish customs and Jewish practices. And so students here get a combination both of a strong grounding in the fundamental texts and learnings of the Jewish tradition and a sense that Judaism can be interpreted in many ways and expressed in many ways, and those come together. Rabbi Heschel, when he thought about religion, had something very interesting to say. He used to say that to be spiritual is to be amazed. To wake up in the morning, to look out the window, and not to take what you see for granted. To approach the world with a sense of awe and wonder and openness and curiosity. That, for Heschel, was what spirituality, in a sense, what religion was all about. So are we a religious school? Well, we're religiously pluralistic. We teach children about the traditions, the texts, the core Jewish teachings, and we imbue them with a sense of awe and wonder and openness and curiosity. So in all of those senses, we are indeed a religious school. The second core pillar or foundation that holds up our educational philosophy is what we call teaching for understanding. So whether we're teaching math or science or literacy or Hebrew or art or music or dance or physical education, all of the things that we teach here at Heschel, we do so through the lens of the Harvard Education School model of teaching for understanding. And that model essentially says that whatever you're teaching, whatever subject it is, don't see the subject as stuff to put in kids' heads. Subjects are not stuff. Subjects are really ways of thinking about the world, disciplines of thinking, ways of seeing the world, a lens through which to see the world. So like when a mathematician looks at the world, they look at the world through the lens of measurement and quantifying and organizing and structuring. When an artist looks at the world, they look for color and form and shape and design. When a writer looks at the world, they look to see what stories are going on. Right now, I can see a number of stories. I see children playing on a playground. There's a story happening there. I see a group of young teenagers who earlier I had to ask if they wouldn't mind moving out into the field, practicing their soccer, all kinds of stories. So whatever subject we're teaching, we really try to teach it as a way of thinking and not just information that students receive. We call that thinking in the disciplines. At the same time, we have a very interdisciplinary approach because we recognize that the world is not really divided into math and science and language and art. The world is a holistic place, and we want our students to understand that. So our curriculum is designed according to what we call big ideas, generative topics, that often integrate across disciplines. So for example, when students in grade 5 are learning about the Exodus from Egypt, Yetziat Mitzrayim, they also do a study of the underground to Canada, the experience of African Americans escaping from the conditions of slavery and coming to Canada. And our students look at what some of the similarities are in terms of the ethical and moral messages, and also what some of the differences are in terms of what those experiences might have been like. When our students study the days of creation, Yomei Bria in grade 1, and they learn about the land, Haaretz, Hashemayim, the sky, and the water, and the birds, and the trees. At the same time, they study the pollination cycle, and they come to see how all of these components of nature come together in this incredible way to produce the bees and ultimately the sweet, sweet honey that we eat on Rosh Hashanah. So our Jewish teachings and our science and our geography and our history and our math and our literacy all kind of find commonalities and touch points to intersect with one another. And it's so important from our perspective that our Jewish children see themselves as both Jewish and part of the bigger, broader world. And so that's the main reason that we do that. A third key pillar related to that second one is multisensory education. And we learned from Howard Gardner, theory of multiple intelligences, that human beings don't just take information in one way. Learning isn't just a question of reading things and then writing tests, taking information in and putting it out. But in fact, human beings learn in very complex and interesting ways. And Gardner identified a number of what he called intelligences that he actually located in parts of the human brain. And so Gardner recognized that people think in logical, rational ways, and people think and process information visually, and people process information auditorily and through music and through movement, and even through interpersonal relationships with one another. He even identified later on a naturalistic intelligence and a spiritual intelligence. So for us, when we're developing our learning tasks, our assignments, the activities that students learn through, we're very attuned to the multiple ways in which students learn. So that learning isn't just a question of paper and pencil tasks, but there's a tremendous amount of inquiry-based learning, hands-on, project-based discovery, a lot of movement. We use a lot of kinesthetic activities to learn all kinds of things at Heschel. Recently, we've been integrating mindfulness into many practices in the school, and of course the arts. A very, very rich integration of the arts, visual arts, music, dance, to teach all kinds of things from geometry to Hebrew grammar to math concepts to spelling concepts, all across the curriculum. And the fourth pillar that I'm going to talk about is the recognition and the acknowledgement that each child is their own unique human being. We really spend a lot of time thinking about each child, discussing each child, trying to understand our students as people and as learners. And at the same time, making sure that we provide them with the tools to be part of a community, the tools to make friends, the tools to build a classroom community, and the tools to see themselves as part of something bigger, as responsible citizens of the world. We teach about democracy, we teach civics. Our children learn what it means to be in a chevra, in a community, in a society. They learn about derech eretz. How do we conduct ourselves well in our relationships with other people? And just like Rabbi Heschel, when he was marching for civil rights in Selma in the 1950s and 60s, felt as though his legs were praying, we want our students to feel like their Jewish learning, their Jewish teachings will take them into the world to be active, responsible citizens for the globe, for the planet, for the future of our world. We really want our students to see their Jewish identity and their Canadian identity as integrated, their Jewish values, their Canadian values, and their universal values as coming together to inform them as whole people, as responsible people, and as people who can contribute to the future. When we think about it, many people talk about Jewish continuity, and they think about Jewish school as a place to help their children be part of the Jewish future. But we like to think about it not just as continuity, but also as creativity. The continuity part is the structure, the frame, but the empty spaces in between are where our students are going to bring themselves, their voice, their neshama, their creativity into the world to help ensure a creative future for the Jewish people and a creative future for all of us as a people and as a planet. And so our goal here at Heschel is pretty big. We're here to teach our kids math. We're here to teach them spelling. We're here to teach them how to read. But we're also here to teach them just how to be really good human beings. And a big part of that is the world beyond. So that's why I think this kind of environment where this framework and the structure, but also a vista onto the outside world is so important. And I'll just point out, and I'm going to ask our camera person here, Esther, to give you a little view of it. Even beyond the walls here of our outdoor classroom, is a very, very, very big, expansive green space. Any of you who have visited will see it. And this is a place where our students spend their recesses and spend their lunches. And as I said, we do more and more of our learning out here. I can't really think of a better way of healing and recovering and rejuvenating ourselves from the year that's just gone by, where we've all probably spent way too much time in front of computers and in front of Zoom. And we're just so looking forward to offering this space up again to our students next year. And we really would like to invite you to be part of that as well. Just before we go, I want to talk a little bit about our roof, because every good framework and structure also has a roof. And the roof of our outdoor classroom, to me, epitomizes the warm and embracing community that is the Toronto Heschel School. This is a place where children feel nurtured, where they feel respected, where families who come with a common vision for what's good for children and what's the best kind of Jewish education come together. So yeah, I welcome you to be part of it. I welcome you to come and join us in our school, in our classrooms, in our field, and this opportunity to be able to work with your children and teach your children and get to know all of you better, because we certainly also invite parents to be an important part of our community as well. So on that note, I'm going to hand you back over to Bailey, who's going to introduce you to two of our extraordinary teachers, educators here at the Heschel School. And then after that, I look forward to gathering back together with all of you. We'll have a panel, an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. So Bailey, back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Greg. So I have the pleasure of introducing Yarden Bourlas, who joined the Toronto Heschel School in 2018, and she teaches grade 8 math, science, and art. She is definitely multi-talented. Maura Yarden specialized in student self-regulation while pursuing her master's in education. She is very passionate about outdoor education, and she oversees the environmental program at Heschel, including the Garden Guardians Club, the Environment Committee, and our Platinum Ontario Eco School certification process. Yarden, take it away.
Thanks, Bailey. Hi, everyone. Yeah, as Bailey said, I teach many things, but one of the subjects that I focus on, one of the disciplines that I focus on is science. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our approach to science here at Heschel, and then I'll be showing you a little video of our beautiful garden, and you'll get a chance to see how integrated all of our curriculum is with our outdoor space. So I'll speak a little more about that later, but science at the Toronto Heschel School is really amazing. It's so, I just feel so privileged to be able to teach science here, because science really is this process of having an experience of curiosity and asking questions and making experiments and discovery. And that's often not how students experience science at other schools, and that natural curiosity that kids have can be somewhat dampened over the years in traditional education. So at the Toronto Heschel School, we make every effort to allow students to have their natural curiosity. Not only do we avoid dampening it, but we really want to stoke the fire of the sense of awe and wonder, as Greg mentioned, that students have when they are approaching the world around them. And it starts from very young, where they are, amazed by anything like water or insects or interactions between, something that they might see in the garden, or what's going on with the moon in our sky and how does it change and why. All of these things that give us that sense of awe is what we like to focus on at the Toronto Heschel School. So awe and wonder, amazement is the foundation of our science curriculum. But of course, we are very systematic in terms of how we study science. We really respect science as a discipline. So very early on, students are exposed to the scientific method. And early on, we call this Moshe's miraculous method. And we take our sort of inspiration from Moshe, who when he was out in the desert and he saw this bush burning, he was amazed and he stopped and he said, wow, how is this possible? He asked a question. This is the first step in the scientific method. So even young students learning for the first time, how to sort of make that inquiry process or initiate that inquiry process, we make that available to them through the scientific method. In the early years, it's called Moshe's miraculous method, but as we proceed through the years in our science classes, we stick very closely to the scientific method, asking students to develop good scientific questions, create hypotheses, collect data, and invent experiments. And then we encourage them to iterate that process over and over and over again. When I teach grade 8, so I get a chance to teach a unit called Space and Time, where we actually have students design experiments to chart the movement of the sun and the moon through the sky. And by doing so, they get to build their own model of what's going on in that process. How do the sun and the moon and the earth all move around each other? So it's quite an amazing science curriculum here. I'm very I just enjoy teaching science here so much because of that focus on awe and wonder. And so much of our science curriculum is also integrated with our garden. So I'm going to play a video shortly. I didn't realize it would be such a beautiful day. We were counting on rain, so I actually pre-recorded a video in our garden on a day that had more wind and interference than today would have had. So please bear with us with that video. But nevertheless, you'll come to understand, I hope, how foundational the garden really is for our curriculum. Definitely for our science curriculum. It is a living laboratory where we get to discover all kinds of wonderful, scientific concepts, and follow the creatures and the living things in the garden and all their interactions and the cycles. But it also is, the garden is so foundational that in language arts, math, art, all of the subjects, music, are all integrated with our garden beds, and I will explain that in my video. So bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and you'll see what I mean shortly. My name is Maura Yarden and I teach grade 8, and I'm also in charge of Heschel's beautiful garden. Our garden is a really foundational aspect of our school. It was founded many, many years ago by founder Maura Ellen Kessler, who really believed that students needed a chance to get their hands dirty, dig in the dirt, and it was from that process that all of the learning and bonding between teachers and students would occur. So we've continued that tradition by expanding the garden. We've got an enormous outdoor learning space, which I'm standing in right now. And behind me, you can see many different garden beds, each one of which is connected to a different grade's curriculum. So for example, 2 beds behind me here, we've got a big mound of soil that is waiting to become our 3 sisters garden beds. So the grade 3s learn through their First Nations unit about the 3 sisters, corn, beans, and squash. And they learn all about the relationships that those 3 crops, which were very important for First Nations people here in Canada, have in order to create a harmonious gardening a harmonious garden so that they can yield the best crop. So the corn is planted at the top of the mound, and they provide structure for the beans, which are planted all around, and they wind up around the corn. They provide nitrogen for the soil, and then the squash is planted all around the edges, and the squash has large leaves that provide ground cover and protect against weeds and water. The grade 3s also participate in a plants and soils unit where they're doing all kinds of measurement and testing of soils right outside here in the garden in their living laboratory. If you move on to one garden bed behind, we've got the grade 5 garden beds. And the grade 5s do a really amazing food security unit where they learn all about where our food comes from. They learn what it means to what organic means and what fair trade means, and they follow food along the chain of when it's grown to when it's shipped to Canada, if it's traveled far, and when it arrives on their plate. And they get a chance to participate in organic gardening when they choose their plants, learn about how to take care of them, and plant them and then harvest them the following year right here in our Heschel garden. This beautiful work in progress is our brand new pollinator garden. Our grade 1 students study pollinators. They learn all about bees and butterflies. The unit looks deeply at change and metamorphosis. Students also discover the relationships that these pollinators have with the plants in our environment, and they understand the importance that that has for us as human beings and what it means for our entire planet. So students every year, they raise butterflies and come to release them in our garden, and we've had always 2 small pollinator gardens that the grade 1 students care for. But this year we received a grant for $5,000 from Pollinator TO and an additional $15,000 from TD Friends of the Environment to build additional pollinator habitat and to expand our outdoor classroom. So this year we are going to be building 10 square meters of new pollinator habitat for the bees and butterflies in our community, not only as part of the grade 1 curriculum, but also as part of our commitment to Tikkun Olam and as part of our school's ethos for taking care of the environment and raising students who understand that they are stewards of the environment and of this earth. So I hope that gives you a sense of how we learn in the garden here, and each grade has their own curriculum. So all students are learning outdoors as much as possible, and especially in this year, this garden has been a boon for us because we've been able to get students outside and learning safely. Okay, so that's a quick overview of our garden. I hope that many of you get a chance to come walk around and see it in person. It is absolutely beautiful there. And yeah, thank you for listening. I'll be happy to answer questions later.
Great. Thank you so much, Jordan. That's a great overview. So now we're going to move on to Lisa Rendley, who was an architect before coming to us as a trained teacher 5 years ago. Lisa is focused on developing meaningful and relevant art projects that encourage students to learn and express complex cross-curricular ideas through the arts. Since Lisa participated in the Legacy Heritage Foundation Teacher Leadership Institute, she has been developing a peer coaching program at Heschel to deepen teachers' abilities to think, teach, and learn across different disciplines. Take it away, Lisa.
Thanks, Bailey. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be part of this event. I'm so excited and privileged to be able to speak about our visual art curriculum at Heschel. It's part of our integrated arts approach to education. And we really believe we learn from the instruction of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel to build your life as if it was a work of art. So we take great care and great thought to ensure that our students understand what it means to think like an artist and to work in the art room, work in their math curriculum, work in their lives as if they are approaching it as a work of art. So it is a real privilege. I've been teaching grade 5 for the last 4 years, and this year I've moved into the art room full time to be able to teach students this year from grades 2 through 7 and next year in kindergarten through grade 7 in our integrated art curriculum. So being able to teach in general studies and art at the same time. For the last 3 years, I've taught grades 5, 6, and 7 visual art. And I have seen the ability that students have to express these incredible understandings that they are learning in their general studies curriculum or their Judaics curriculum, their non-visual art classes, and they bring these ideas, this knowledge, this learning into the art room. And one example, I know Maury Gregg talked about the Slavery to Freedom unit, Me'avdut Lecherut, that students study in grade 5. And they read Sefer Shmot, they read the story of Exodus, they read the novel Underground to Canada, and they create in the art room a work of art out of macrame. So this is one such example. It's so large, I can't fit it on my screen. But each student learns a series of knots. They learn a vocabulary of knots. We learn from the wisdom of others. So we learn from a macrame artist, a textile artist named Wendy Chen. And each student learns these different knots, interprets them in their own way, and makes a connection between a knot and a specific pasuk, a specific passage of text that either expresses a moment of liberation or a moment of restriction, a moment of slavery or a moment of freedom. And they think about sequence, they think about order, they think about composition. How are they expressing the story of slavery to freedom? How do they share their knowledge through an artistic medium? And students think very deeply, very carefully. They all learn a series of 4 knots, and every sculpture that I've seen in 5 years of teaching this remarkable project, every sculpture has been different. Every sculpture has been extraordinary. And what's more extraordinary than the physical artwork is the understanding that underlies it, the ability that each student has to stand up and point to a knot and say, this knot represents this pasuk. This knot represents when Moshe is approaching the burning bush and is frightened, but doesn't shy away, actually approaches it with courage and bravery. For me, a student might say, for me, this represents a moment of the opening of liberation. So I've chosen this knot to represent it. And each student is able to say that with confidence, not just confidence, but with dedication, with passion. They're able to really express what they know. And through the arts, we give students tools. We give them opportunity to liberate themselves or be liberated from pencil and paper tasks, to be liberated from having to write a test to describe what they know, to be assessed in a very traditional way. But we give them opportunity to share very, very, very deep, rich, layered understanding through a visual expression. Students in grade 6 study the Seder. They study the Seder in conjunction with learning about our environment, and they study separate sections. So students connect an ecological challenge that we are facing in our society with a section of the Seder. They study it in math. They create surveys about their issue. They survey people to find out how their community feels about a particular issue. They conduct research on innovation. They think about the 4 names of Pesach and how they have different meanings. And students connect their research to these themes, and they create a ceramic Seder plate that expresses their research. This is done by a grade 6 student. And each section expresses something that they've learned. It connects to a theme or a name of Pesach, and then they write about it in great detail in an essay. But in that essay, students are expressing all that they know. They describe their scientific understanding, their mathematical understanding, their artistic expression. The artist statement is one of our greatest tools that we give our students. We ask students to write artist statements beginning in kindergarten. We ask them to name their artwork, to describe their decisions. Through this, we're giving students tools of self-expression, of being able to ground their identity through the choices they make. They learn that they are artists. What they share, what they make, what they think about, what they care about has value. It carries value in our community. By giving something a name, we're giving it value. And we're teaching that to someone who's 4 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old, that they are bringing this value into our world. And empowering students to see themselves as artists, to bring art into our world, is one of the greatest gifts that I can imagine being able to have. But the greatest gift that we can give them is that empowerment, to know that the ideas they have are valuable, that what they bring, what they create, what they design, what they think about is important and matters. And through the arts, we give students the opportunity to share all that they know. In what you see behind me is a grade 7 project called The Beautiful Triangle. I actually had the privilege of teaching this for the beginning of this year before I transitioned into the art room. And I worked with students in the art room and in the math classroom, teaching them about angles, triangles. We learned complex angle theorems. We learned a variety of different calculations. They stretched themselves through their geometric thinking. But we also posed the question, what makes a triangle beautiful? How is this triangle beautiful? And at first, students think to themselves, is Mora Lisa crazy? Why is she saying that? But as we present them with a series of different triangles, students start to have an opinion. They start to debate each other about, well, this equilateral triangle, it's boring. And someone else says, I love it because it's harmonious, it's centered, it's grounded. We give them the opportunity to make these claims, but also to back up what they're saying with how they're feeling, what they're thinking, and then they get to express that. All of the works behind me are inspired by Wassily Kandinsky. None of them look like his artwork. He's our artist in residence, another core value of our learning at Heschel. We learn from the wisdom of others. And we ask students to express a theme through geometry, through math, and through art. And each one is, and we ask them to write a very complex artist statement to describe their choices. And each student articulates their decisions so clearly, can write about why this is about confusion and being unsure of who they are. And this one is about anger. And this one is about an inability to make decisions. Each student can articulate what they did, why they did it. And it's because they've had that training every year, building on their strengths, building on their skills, learning technical language, technical skills, and also a lot of theory and bringing and bridging all that they know together to be able to really build their lives and live their lives as works of art.
Great, thank you so much, Lisa. I always find it so inspiring to hear you talk about Heschel's art program and how it integrates with the rest of the curriculum. Thank you so much. So I realize I didn't introduce myself. You have all heard from me multiple times, I'm sure. I'm Bailey Daniels. I'm the Director of Admissions, and I will moderate now any of the questions that you may have for our panelists. Actually, before we get into that, we do have a couple of other members of our leadership team here. We have Mark Abramson, who is our Director of Business Operations, and Edna Charette, who is our Director of Elementary and Junior High. So thank you both for joining us as well. And any of us are happy to answer your questions. I would encourage you to unmute, put your camera on if you wish. We're all friendly. But the other option is send it in the chat and I will relay questions and we can work it that way. So does anyone have any questions for our panel? I will give you a moment just to type if you are typing. Okay, I've got a question here. Maura Gregg, you seem to have changed locations. What's going on there?
Yeah, sure. So hi there. Thanks for the question. So I have changed locations, and I did that deliberately because I wanted to show another dimension of our school, and this is our wonderful graffiti art project. Lisa just spoke about some of the incredible artwork that comes out of the curriculum and out of the art room. And one of those pieces, one of that incredible work doesn't stay in the art room. It actually comes onto the walls of our school. And this is the end of the year final grade 8 project, where the grade 8s choose a piece of text that they've studied over the course of the year that was very meaningful to them during that year, something from Chumash or Talmud or Tefillah or a song that they learned in Hebrew class, and an experience that they had over the year. And then they produce a piece of artwork, a piece of graffiti art. They do the pre-designs, they submit different options, they discuss what they feel would be the best way to represent the idea or the verse that they've chosen. And then that becomes part of our school, the canvas of our school on the exterior of our school. So yeah, that's what that's all about. And it's connected very much to the grade 8s leaving a mark, leaving their name, their voice, their message as their almost like parting gift to the rest of the school as they graduate. It's also very windy out here.
You sound okay. You sound clear to me.
Okay, does it? Okay, good.
Yep. So we've had a question about what is the average class size?
Do you want to answer that, Bailey? Would you like
sure,
me to?
I can answer that question. It does vary grade by grade. The school will have usually 2 classes of up to 20 kids in a class, and the average would be 18. So some could be up to 20, some might be 14, 15, 16. It depends on the grade and the year.
But Bailey, I would maybe add to those a little bit more, there's a little bit more nuance in the sense that that's the number of students that would be in a classroom. This year, there were fewer due to COVID restrictions, and we kind of made use of other spaces and had fewer, but in general, it's between 18 and 20. But many of those classrooms, especially in the younger years, have 2 teachers with the students at many times, sometimes all the time. So the ratio is actually more like an average of 1 to 9. Many of our, in the upper grades, we continue to do small group learning in different contexts, particularly in our Judaic studies, because we strongly promote an Ivrit Be'Ivrit, a Hebrew immersion approach, and we want students to be speaking as much as possible. And there's a lot of research that suggests that smaller group settings work best for that. So the average class size is about 18, but the average group size, I would say, is probably closer to around 10. And at different times, the kids are all together, but at other times they're in smaller groupings. So I just add that piece to the answer.
Great. We've had another question come in from Jeremy. How do you deal with bullying, and how do you reinforce respect among students?
Yeah, that's a great question. So social emotional learning is a key piece of our learning here at Heschel, and it happens in many, many, many ways. So there's what we would call, I think, the pro-social curriculum, and then there's the responsive social curriculum. So the pro-social curriculum is helping students develop the skills and the capacities and the proclivity to conduct themselves well with each other. And it's woven throughout our curriculum. So one of the key features is something that we call Midat HaShavua. Midat HaShavua is the midah, or the kind of like the practice of the week. It's drawn from the weekly parsha of the Torah, and it can be all kinds of things like be flexible, the way Abraham was flexible in sharing his land with Lot, or be compassionate and act with kindness, the way Rivka was when she offered water to the camels and to her visitors. And students learn these verses, but then they also learn, how can they implement that? What does that mean now when I go out into my day? Obviously, I'm not going to be giving water to too many camels in the school. So what does it mean to act kindly towards the people who I encounter? Does it mean holding the door? Does it mean saying a kind word? And those conversations take place throughout the week with the homeroom teachers and in other contexts. And then woven throughout the curriculum, there are many, many opportunities for students to do thinking about social emotional learning, what it means to identify their own feelings, their own responses. Even some of the artwork that Lisa just described from grade 7, as you heard, had to do with how people were experiencing the year. And this was a year where there were a lot of emotional experiences that students wanted to express. So just unearthing that and allowing students to have those conversations and to talk about their feelings and to talk about their responses goes a long way. That said, there will still be times when we do things that, we don't make the best choices and we don't behave in a way that we would have wanted to, or which is acceptable in our community. And so for that, we have what we call a tikkun process. And tikkun is the Jewish concept for fixing, tikkun olam, fixing the world. And it's basically based on the premise that nobody misbehaves or acts badly on purpose. So that's kind of the starting premise. We're all created in the image of God. Our intention, our kavanah, is usually good, but sometimes we miss the mark. Sometimes we're frustrated. Sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we're annoyed. Sometimes we can't control our feelings and our emotions, and we do things that we shouldn't do. And if that happens, we engage students in a process of tikkun. What tikkun really involves 2 steps, very simply. 1, reflecting on what you did and whom it affected. And secondly, what can you do to fix it? So if you did something with your hands, you took someone, you grabbed somebody's work and got damaged, then you're going to have to do some kind of tikkun with your hands. Maybe you're going to make something for that person. Maybe you'll be assigned to do some cleanup in the classroom. Whatever it is that you broke, we'll try to fix it. And our general approach is to see children as always on a growth path. So everybody can learn. We can learn from our mistakes just as much as we can learn from our successes. And we find that the combination of the pro-social and that responsive approach of tikkun works, most of the time. And there are times when, we really have to have serious conversations with students and families. And sometimes, next year we're going to have a full-time social worker at the school, recognizing that COVID has been really difficult on kids and that there may be some extra needs next year. So there may be some conversations, with the social worker that help kids process how they're feeling. But we do really try to take a proactive, pro-social, and respectful attitude towards children in their social development. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Good info. Does anyone else have questions either about what they've heard tonight or things that they didn't hear about? Certainly we didn't cover the full spectrum of features of the Toronto Heschel School. Jeremy asks further, being from a Sephardic background, what is the place for diversity and inclusion within our community and outside of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I've been answering all the questions. I don't know if either Lisa or Yarden want to pick up any of these. I'm happy to. No? Okay. Diversity. Yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Sure.
So one of the things that I love the most about Heschel, besides all that I get to do in the art room, but including, this is inclusive of that, is our perspective about diversity and our inclusion within our community. And we have many, in concert with our perspective on pluralism and inviting and welcoming many voices to our community, we do so with the members of our community as well. And I know we have a number of students, of staff who are of diverse backgrounds and within the spectrum of the Jewish community. And it is so beautiful and special and important to have all of these voices included in our community, because they strengthen our understanding of what it means to be Jewish, of what it means to be a person living in the world. And we also include voices of people who are not members of our Jewish community in what we learn and who we learn from, so that we are not only a mono perspective, but we really learn and grow in the diversity of our physical community and the broader community around us.
Just to maybe give some kind of concrete examples of some of the things Lisa's speaking about through the ages that came to mind, and there are many of them. But in grade 2, for example, our grade 2s, their final unit of the year is called Etzem Me'atzmai, which is from the pasuk in the Torah where the human being, the kind of male and female parts of the human being, kind of saw each other and said, well, we kind of look different, but actually we're all of the same flesh and bone. And that expands into a whole unit on diversity in terms of the fact that we're one human community, and this is beyond the Jewish community. We're one human community, but we may look different. We may have different traditions. We may play different games. And the grade 2s, their research project, their end of the year research project is called Children Around the World, where they research about children around the world and their different interests and their different traditions and cultures, but all within this framework of this Jewish teaching that even though we may all look different, we're etzem etzmai, we're all made of the same stuff. And we really try to be active in terms of inclusivity, also anti-racism. And even though we're a Jewish community and we're very respectful and inviting the pluralism, we also want our students to understand that there's much more beyond the Jewish community. And in age-appropriate ways, in different, as the kids move up through the grades, we expose them more and more to the diversity of the world around them. So another project is thinking about the grade 7s. Right now we're engaging in Jewish history, so where Jewish people have lived and ended up, and the different kind of cultures and practices and ways of being Jewish that have emerged simply by the fact of the Jewish diaspora being in China and being in India and being in Iraq and being in Iran and being in Israel and being in Argentina, all the places that the Jewish people have ended up. So it's a very important piece of our education. We're thinking a lot these days about our teaching around Indigenous peoples of Canada as well. Those are already pieces of our curriculum, but clearly there's a need to expand that further as well.
So we have a question from Erica and Noah. Thank you for organizing and hosting tonight's open house. We're wondering if there are any creative writing clubs or opportunities for enrichment if it really enjoys writing.
Okay. So there are many opportunities for writing built right into the curriculum. So one of the things that I love about the way we teach here at Heschel is some of those things that people often think would be like extra or, for kids who are really interested in, that's actually our curriculum. Those are actually the things we do. That said, there are many opportunities for things that go a little bit beyond the walls of the classroom. Our classroom walls, as I was trying to suggest earlier, are quite porous. This year we had a number of winners, poetry contest winners of the Polar Expressions Poetry Contest. So we always look for opportunities for our students to submit their work beyond the school. In fact, two of Mora Yarden students won a very, very big honor. Mora Yarden, maybe you'd like to talk about that briefly. That had to do with their work on student council.
Yeah, so I'm the advisor for the Environment Committee, and one of the activities that we did this year was the Young Reporters for the Environment contest, which is a nationwide contest where students can submit their work. So we had one student submit an article, and then another student submit a video that she created based on her friend's article. So it was kind of a joint effort, and despite there being double the submissions this year, they took first prize. So they'll be entered into the international contest. So we were very proud of them. And hopefully next year, there'll be even more students who enter that contest, because it was just 2 of them this year, but now there's a bit of hype around it. So we're excited about that.
We have a very interesting student council. It's really a junior high project, but when students come to junior high, they've already experienced a lot of community building and sort of civics lessons through the work they do in their classrooms. In junior high, we have a student council that's modeled, doesn't have a president or a vice president or a secretary or a treasurer, because we're not the United States. We happen to be Canada, and we also have a connection with Israel. So our student council is modeled after the parliamentary system, and we have ministers. So we have a Sar Tikkun Olam, a minister of Tikkun Olam, and Sar Le'echut HaSviva, a minister for the environment, and Sar Tikshoret, the ministers of communication. And those ministers and their ministries work on projects in the school, from the yearbook to some of the environment projects that Mora Yarden spoke about. So there are many opportunities, particularly in the upper grades, for students to demonstrate their leadership and to look for other avenues for their interests. But throughout the curriculum, there are many, many of those opportunities as well.
Shauna asks, what is communication like between parents and teachers?
So there is a lot of communication. Sometimes we're told there's too much communication. There is a weekly bulletin that comes from the school that kind of gives broad communication about all kinds of stuff going on at the school. Then each grade also does a Friday newsletter that talks about what's being learned, any important announcements that are coming up, things that are going on. So parents are always kind of in the know around what their children are learning. It's certainly very easy to interact with your children around what's going on in the classroom. And then, of course, if issues come up as they arise, our teachers are always very, very generous in terms of their willingness to reach out. And we're always working in partnership with parents. In fact, we see the school-parent partnership as really, really key to success. It's a team effort, and it's communication with parents is very important.
I would add, as a homeroom teacher for 5 years, it is, we really value the connection between parents and teachers, and between parents and students and teachers. We welcome each parent into our homeroom class at the beginning of every year, and we really work to establish open lines of communication where we're really invested from both sides on helping each student develop and grow as in whatever capacity that requires. So the communication and collaboration between parents and teachers is very strong, and it also bleeds out of the classroom. And I know that one of the strengths of our school is our beautiful community. And you can see from the communication outside of classrooms, whether it's at Chevra events or just connecting outside of standing in the front of the school. It's so nice to see teachers and parents just communicating really openly and professionally, but collegially, or I guess not collegially, we're not colleagues, but professionally and openly, and in just a really beautiful dialogue in and out of the classroom setting.
I will also say that a number of our staff do send their kids to the school, so some are our colleagues and parents as well, and it's really, really nice part of our community as well.
True. I did just have a parent tell me, I've only been with the school, I'm coming up on my 1-year university anniversary, so I don't know where university came from. But I've been told that during normal times, parents are actually welcome into the school kind of more freely than they may be at other schools, and that the school is almost an extension of their home, and that's part of what makes the community here so warm. So you would have a chance to interact with teachers sort of on a more casual basis as well, just in the hallways. Last question here, do most graduates go on to Chat or to other high schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. So all of our graduates in the history of the school have gone on to Chat or other high schools. No, just kidding. Our kids all do well and go on to high school and succeed very well. The trend recently has been for a significant majority to go to Chat. Over the years, that has kind of ebbed and flowed. Generally speaking, I'd say between 60 and 80% of the students go on to Chat, but we've certainly had many students go on to other schools. My own daughter and a number of her classmates went on to the Claude Watson School for the Arts, and we've had many of our graduates go on to sort of specialty programs like that in the arts or in the math and science, the Max program in math and science. So students do go on to a variety of schools, but definitely, certainly more than half tend to go to Chat. At least that's been the trend recently.
Last year, I know that it was 75% went to Chat.
Yeah, but there are definitely other kids who do go to other schools, and often they kind of go, the ones who go to other schools often go as a bit of a group, you know, so there'll be, as I said, my daughter and I think 5 of her classmates went to the Claude Watson program. We've had, you know, 2 or 3 kids at a time go to the Max program, so that does happen as well.
Yeah, I was on a call with the director of admissions from Chat a couple of weeks ago, and just hearing how our graduates had done, and they were absolutely all doing really, really well in all the academics, very strong in Judaic studies, especially Hebrew language skills, and doing well across the board. So I think that about wraps up our time. I want to thank all of our prospective parents and incoming parents for joining us tonight, as well as my Heschel colleagues. I appreciate everyone being here. And if you have further questions about the school, about applying, about anything, you can reach me at admissions@torontoheschel.org. Thank you all for coming, and have a good evening. Get outside if you haven't had a chance today. It's a beautiful evening.
It's beautiful out here. It's gorgeous.